Of all the tips, of all the takes, of all the players, and all the advice I can give you the rest of the season, I am so confident that this next piece of advice is the most important. This will guarantee that the rest of your fantasy season has a level of happiness in it. And I want to say a level because I want to talk about hedging for just 1 second. I was going up against Josh Allen in a very important dynasty league that I play in. It's not the Yacht Club, but and I don't even call it this the next best thing because there is no next best thing. Yacht Club's its own tier. But I was in a league I cared deeply about. I was playing against Josh Allen. I'm in Arizona. It's a state where sports gambling is legal. So you know what I did? I said, you know what? If Josh Allen goes off tonight, I don't want to just be absolutely disheveled. So I put together a very nice parlay that had Josh Allen and Dalton Kincaid doing just enough. And I'll tell you what, I'm down 40 points in the Dynasty League, but I'm up 35 units on my gambling. Mixed feelings, gosh. Here we come.
At least you have that option. In California, I just drown in my sorrows because the best I can do is DraftKings. Or not DraftKings, sorry, Prize Picks.
Daily fantasy?
Yeah, like exactly. Yep.
No, that's a good time. And you see those on Sleeper all the time. But seriously, when you go up against a Josh Allen, this is a league I'm competing in, by the way. What can you do? I mean, the Buccaneers were basically asking that question. They came out hot. Josh Allen, 324 through the air, 2 touchdowns through the air, 7 for 41 on the ground. I think that was the most important thing to see. And coupled with that 7 for 41 on the ground, I saw him slide a few times. Are we seeing Josh Allen mature in real time?
I think so. And on top of that, the 741, he had a touchdown, like the running touchdown that he had. So, I mean, Josh Allen, it's good that he's sliding. Part of that was, I don't know. You saw at the beginning of the game, he went into the blue tent. Still don't really know what that was about. I wasn't able to listen to the broadcast, so I don't know if they were saying something, but
yeah, he'd landed on his shoulder a little funky. And unlike Deshaun Watson, he's a grown man. And he said, yeah, I'm going to shake it off and be fine and finish this game.
Yeah. I hadn't seen any reports, but that was concerning. And I had just, in another dynasty league that I'm in, just traded a ton to get Josh Allen. So as soon as he went into the blue tent after just scoring with you, I was like, oh my gosh. But you're right, man. Like Josh Allen is just a freak, right? He is proven his fantasy football goodness and dominance, and it doesn't look like he's slowing down. And what I like about what I saw tonight is that he did it without prioritizing Diggs.
Yeah.
There were so many different options that got involved. And so when Diggs is no longer a part of the offense, don't get me wrong, he still had 12 targets, right? Diggs was trying to get him there.
He didn't prioritize. He didn't only rely on him. The supporting cast stepped up big time. And I think that's actually going to be good for Diggs down the stretch because, first of all, the Buccaneers had Carlton Davis, their best corner, shadowing him the whole game. Slot, outside. They were like, hey, we're going to make you beat us with someone else, and Gabe Davis stepped up. Khalil Shakir, who I've already mentioned, which, by the way...
Shakir.
I know, dude. He was this off-season gem. You and I we traded him back and forth in Yacht Club like 2 or 3 times because we were like, oh, the hype on Shakir. And then they drafted Dalton Kincaid, and I ended up with the hot potato of it. I'm like, oh, crap. Like, this is not going to work out well. But, hey, Dalton Kincaid. Davis isn't here, thank the Lord, because we would be hearing...
Praise him.
I know. Listen, he had a great game, 7 targets, 5 for 65, and most importantly, he found his way into the end zone. Davis would be over the moon saying this is a sign of things to come. Dawson Knox was injured this game and will be out for the next 4 games. I think Kincaid is going to be excellent for these next 4 games. The question I have for you, though, Dylan, is we've talked about Sam Laporta quite a bit. Now that Kincaid is kind of finding his rhythm, would you rather have Laporta or Kincaid in a vacuum right now? Both these rookie tight ends showing up and showing out.
Yeah, I mean, with the Dawson Knox looming, it gets a little tricky. But I legitimately think Dawson Knox getting injured may be the worst thing for Dawson Knox. I don't know if he ever gets back to relevance if Kincaid continues to play like he's playing. And if we are just comparing apples to apples, right? Yes, Dalton Kincaid had a later kind of breakout than Laporta had. Long term, I want Kincaid. I want Kincaid over Laporta.
Really?
Attached to Josh Allen, yes. I just don't know. Is Goff going to be consistently throwing to Laporta? Is he there next year?
That's a great question. You mean Goff, right? I think Goff gets an extension, but that's a question mark. Here's what I would say. The Bills are weird about packages because James Cook, and I wanted to bring this up, he was 14 for 68 on the ground. James Cook looks awesome. What makes me so angry is the Bills are the type of team where they have certain packages, like this is our 2-minute people. These are our 4-minute people. And You know what? Who isn't in the red zone package is James Cook.
At all.
Similarly, there are certain packages Dalton Kincaid is never going to be a part of because he can't block well when Dawson Knox is available. I'm not saying that Dawson Knox is going to be fantasy relevant again as a pass catcher, but why they paid Dawson Knox long term is he's a great blocker, and that's why he's been getting the red zone targets more than Dalton Kincaid has from the tight end position, in my opinion, because you can line up to punch it in with Latavius Murray, which makes me irrationally angry again. That makes me so. You have a 33-year-old, like, James Cook is so good. Like,
but
there's so many things you can do with it.
It's the knock on James Cook. He's sub 100 or 200 pounds. Like, he's not profiled as a between the tackles guy. He looks great though.
I know. Austin Eckler has like led the league in touchdowns for multiple years, and he's not like, he's above 200 pounds, I know, but he's not like huge. He's not a 230, 250 pound back. So it's not like these smaller backs can't do it. In terms of Kincaid versus Laporta, I'm for now going to stay in the Laporta camp because I think with Dawson Knox missing, also Stephon Diggs had an off game, like we talked about. He still had 12 targets. He was 9 for 70. So it's still good in half PPR, but Gabe Davis is still the 2 there. So Kincaid had a good game. I think he's a great tight end. Certainly a top 5, top 6 dynasty tight end. But Laporta, because I think he still is that second read with the Lions, is the tight end that I do want to roster. Listen, we're going to go ahead.
Yeah, no, real quick. Here's how I'll put it. If I have Laporta, I'm not like going and trading him for Kincaid. But like if it comes to like if I don't have either and I'm going to trade for one, I'm going to get Kincaid. I would prioritize getting Kincaid over Laporta for the long term in Dynasty.
I respect it. The last thing I would say on it is give me the guy who's genuinely the number 2 in a high scoring offense. Because the biggest thing about the Bills is, you know, for a couple years now, we know they're a really good offense. We have to accept the fact that the Lions are also a really good offense. And so I don't think that the Bills being a better offense is the tiebreaker that would normally swing me towards Kincaid. I'm going to stick with Laporta. But still, if you have either of those guys, you have a great problem. You have rookie tight ends performing way better than rookies normally do. It's exciting to see. Going to the Bucs side of the ball, Dylan, I want to talk to you about Baker Mayfield because you have had what I believe is a unhealthy crush on him. And I had forgotten that Baker Mayfield was at one point a Red Raider. You were screaming to Davis and I during the offseason that Baker Mayfield was this year's Geno Smith. 237-2, and frankly, it should have been 303 because he threw an amazing Hail Mary that Chris Godwin should have just seen and caught. It was right
the
there.
Amount of pass interference on that play. If you just look at it, you got Mike Evans getting tackled, Chris Godwin's arms. Like, it's just like a free-for-all.
I kind of like the no call on Hail Marys, to be honest. Like, let him play a little bit. The refs were pretty good, but no, Godwin still should have caught it, or at least he could have. I know that that's incredibly hard. But Baker, in a game he was under duress the whole time, it seems like they were inside the 10 on a million of those drives, still puts up a good fantasy day. Why have you believed in Baker as long as you have? What is it about his game? What shows up on film that, because you're always telling me, I don't care about stats. Not that you don't care about them, but keep, trade, cut, all the advanced analytics are like, tell me to pass the eye test. How does Baker pass the eye test for you?
Yeah, I mean, he's a former Heisman winner, right? Going back to college. And yes, I think I still have a soft spot in my heart for Baker because he was a Red Raider at one point. But the reality is I think, to me, the issue is beginning to seem like a Cleveland problem and not a quarterback problem. When Baker was there, he didn't have the best of weapons. He had the whole drama with OBJ. He had Jarvis Landry at the time, but like he didn't really have the weapons. And even in his rookie year, he still produced. He got them to the playoffs, something they had not done. Even had a winning season before he got there.
Not in his rookie year, but he had a great rookie year, and he got him to the playoffs the next year.
Yes, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
My point was they didn't have a winning season or a playoff appearance until Baker Mayfield got there.
Very true.
So the fact that he did that, and if you go, I'm sure there's stuff all over Instagram, all over whatever social media, you see how many quarterbacks the Browns went through and didn't have success. Baker brought them success, and then it was just a crap show for him there. So to me, Baker Mayfield's always passed the eye test in the sense of he's one of the best deep ball quarterbacks in the NFL, statistically. Yeah. I'm not a big stats guy, but he legitimately, if you look up the duration of his career, is one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL.
Well, I mean, here's the one stat that's really cool, and I know it's kind of he has like it's kind of useless to some extent, but he has the record for the longest air yards pass. It wasn't completed, like pass thrown in the air of like I think it's like 77 yards or something like that. Like he's literally thrown it the furthest in an NFL game. So he's got a big, strong arm. Baker looked good. I think the question you have to ask as a dynasty owner is, am I looking at a long-term piece? This isn't a sell high if you have him right now as a quarterback 2 in a super flex league. The question is, do you hang on to him like Geno and hope he gets a
Yes.
long-term contract with the Buccaneers? Because I think he does.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the reason why I literally see it playing out. He's younger than Geno, but like I see it playing out how Geno Smith beat out Drew Lock and got the starting job, and then was just he played well and has kind of, they haven't extended him drastically. He's not getting a 5-year, one of those big contracts, but like
Right.
he's a quarterback that will win games, and so
Yeah.
Baker can be that very much. He's holding off Kyle Trask. He's winning games and he's playing good football. So
Yeah.
I just don't see. If I'm dynasty, if you can get him for cheap as a QB2, go get him.
So he's a buy now or a hold for sure in
Yes,
either strategy
100%.
play. I think it's great. Listen, part of the reason Baker, I think, is struggling to win games more recently is the lack of a ground game. Very strange. Rachaad White is the worst 7 for 70 through the air I have ever seen. I watched the entire game. I looked up the box score. I was like, wait, Rachaad White had 7 for 70. There was a lot of hype around this mid-round in redraft. Kind of a little bit of a dynasty darling as well. A lot of hype around Rachaad White. He's disappointed on the ground, but for volume, he just keeps catching passes. In a PPR league, you're stoked with him.
Bro,
I have no idea what to do with Rachaad White. I don't want him, but I wouldn't cut him. Yeah.
The most frustrating guy, because you look at him run the ball, and he's like Jonathan Taylor early on when he's literally just running into the back of the guard. That's all he does. He gets the ball, takes the handoff, and literally just sprints into the back of the line. It's like, bro,
Jonathan Taylor does that? Jonathan Taylor's bad? That's
no. I'm saying at the beginning. I said at the beginning of Jonathan Taylor, like the first
he was
half of his rookie year, he was not, for some reason, he wasn't finding the holes. He was just running into the back of the line.
Yeah.
That's Rachaad White still. And I don't know what it does, what it's going to take to click. But like if you look on the opposite side of the field, James Cook he's a smaller guy, but he's more apt to get on the outside. But what I will say about Rachaad White is he's doing and producing exactly how we expected him to do so. We thought that he was going to come in and be the receiving back to Leonard Fournette's just ground and pound, right? And he earned most of his production on screen, like on a screen pass that went all the way down to the goal line. So, I mean, I like Rachaad White. I mean, I'm not going crazy over trying to get him, but I think he's producing how you would think he would. He's not going to give you anything on the ground, but you better hope he's getting those dump off passes.
Dude, it's the Costco hot dog, right? It's like, this is not good food, but I got it for $1.50. So it just hits the spot. Like, this is gross production in garbage time. Listen, they can't run the ball. I don't think their offensive line is going to get any better throughout the year. I don't think the running game is going to come. And so for fantasy purposes, if Rachaad White keeps catching 5 to 6 passes a week on dump offs during garbage time, that's great. Speaking of garbage time, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. I mean, Chris Godwin didn't do it in garbage time. He was 5 for 54, but Mike Evans saved his day, 3 for 39 with a touchdown towards the end of the game. Also, there was a Trey Palmer sighting. I thought he was targeted quite a bit, had a chance at big plays. I think if Trey Palmer can step up in the next couple of weeks, he had a lot of difficult contested catches. I'm thinking of one third down pass Baker put right on him where he dove to catch it. I think Palmer could be a nice complement in the offense and maybe a buy low candidate, someone we were kind of high on in the preseason going into the regular season. But listen, Trey Palmer's a rookie, and we've talked a lot about Baker, who was with Carolina last year. We're going to be talking about Bryce Young. We're going to be talking about all the rookies following this commercial break, because we're at the point in the season where it's time for you to review, where am I at with my rookies and what do I need to do this season in terms of managing them? Because a rookie loses their value more than ever going into that second season. That rookie price tag can carry so much weight for a long period of time, but you need to be informed on what to do. We've got all those answers coming up right now. You know, we're coming up, I believe this is our 20th episode, Dylan. And in episode 19, we had a chance to interview Matthew Berry, which is an incredible milestone, not for the show, but for my life. If the show never has another episode, grand success. He asked us for trade advice, dude. Like, I'm still wigging out about that. As he should. I mean, we're professionals, but
it's like LeBron asking you how to fix his shot. That's exactly what it's like for us.
It's exactly what we feel. But if we had to really give listeners at this point, like, what is the thesis of our show, other than we're a reality TV spinoff of a bunch of diehard, degenerate dynasty players who take this way too far? I would say gamesmanship. We are all about teaching you kind of the tips and tricks to win your league that isn't merely focused on player profiles. We're never going to send out a draft kit. We're never going to have consensus rankings that we publish. If we do, they will be as a gag for fantasy receipts to tear up. Not because we can't, but because there's so many great resources like that out there. And we just feel what's lacking in the industry is the in context, hey, this is how you take a left turn. This is how you take a right turn. This is how it feels driving the race car. This is how it feels flying the plane. And what we wanted to do is we're all owners of certain rookies at every level of the Yacht Club. One of the three of us, including Mike, the four of us, has touched or at some point traded for one of the players we're going to go over. But we're at a critical point in the season where you're coming up on, I think is it week 8 now we're in. So you have a large enough sample size to really begin to understand how players are going to develop in their rookie year. And the thing about a rookie year is it's a lot like a car. The moment a rookie comes out of, and I want to clarify this, not just the rookie season, but the postseason or the offseason following their rookie season, it's like a car being driven off the lot. It immediately depreciates in value. There's no longer this like, hey, I'm brand new, I'm figuring it out price tag. If they start out their year 2 poorly, their value tanks quickly. If you need evidence of this, Treylon Burks is a name that comes to mind right
don't
away.
Do that to me. Do not do that to me. Come on.
Is anyone talking about Treylon Burks? Is anyone talking about Sky Moore? They're dead. They're dead for value. But you could still trade them for seconds plus. I traded Sky Moore for a second and a third this offseason right before the season started because there was this hope that it's an Andy Reid offense. He'll figure it out. All that being said, we want to compare two things, not just your rookies and what you should be doing with them, but also if you're a competitive team, if you maybe need to ship a player out for a 24 first. If you're a tanking team, you probably have already cornered the market on a top 4 pick, which we need to talk about Caleb Williams, by the way, because he was like the 101 solidified. But we're going to be working from like, would you rather have this player, specifically on the wide receivers and running back section, or like the 105 plus in the 24 draft? So we're just going to be going through all of our rookies. Some of them obviously aren't worth a first round pick, but we want to advise you on all of them. And then we're just guessing that if you have questions about whether or not you should tank, the best you can do is the 105 or worse. So we're assuming Brock Bowers, Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake May, and Caleb Williams, someone has already tanked, and those are spoken for in your league. But Dylan, you specifically asked, you wanted to chat about Caleb Williams a little bit before we jumped into this. He's been losing. He's been making what I would say losing comments. We're both Texas high school football guys, right? And there's a lot of militaristic principles. We were
tough players win. TPW, literally when we were in high school doing push-ups or at the end of workouts, our coach had all 60 men that were on the team in that locker room. And we would finish every workout. Tough players win. Tough players win. It's ingrained in us.
Well, it's not even just high school. We played Pee-wee football against each other. I know you played for the Warriors and I played for the Rockets. My high school or my Pee-wee football coach was 75 years old. It was like, I'm a feeder program for Trinity. And he only had, literally, like, we're doing up downs. Like, yes, sir. Like, when I hear Caleb Williams, like, oh my gosh, dude, like, these rumors about he wants ownership in the team and then you lose 2 games. This isn't a good look for him. From an old head for football, I know I'm only 28 years old. I'm an old head when it comes to football. You're concerned about Caleb Williams' value and what he's saying, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to steer clear of the speculation of even just the way it looks for him as a person, right? I think we can draw conclusions. I have my own, and I agree with your sentiment of like the comments that he's making and what he's saying in front of cameras. It's just not the right stuff. And you don't want to hear that, especially from a quarterback, because that's the leader of your team. And in the NFL, your franchise, that is the face of your franchise.
Yeah.
What I'm concerned about is a little bit of that and a little bit of like his production, and a lot of his production has come against not great competition. And what he's doing is what Johnny Manziel was doing at a much higher scale against better competition. Look what happened to Johnny Manziel. All I want people to see is, I understand Caleb Williams is a generational prospect. I'm not going to argue that at this point because of what he's done. I'm not saying that you shouldn't treat him as such.
Well, you said he was generational as well.
I did. I did. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to slander that. I'm not saying he's the next Johnny Manziel. He's going to be terrible in the NFL. What I'm saying is we need to take a step back and we need to evaluate and not just be so infatuated like we were with one Bijan Robinson, who we'll talk about later.
Yep.
We can't be as infatuated with as dynasty players. You've got to be strategic, right? You want to be, the reason why you're listening to the Dynasty Exchange is because you don't want just the everyday advice that someone's giving you and just only trade with the markets. No, we're going to give you a diverse perspective, and we're going to tell you that you should think to get ahead. So what I'm going to advocate for specifically with Caleb Williams is consider, if you have the 101 at some point, or the pick looks like it's going to be the 101 and you can sell it as such, take it, try to get the 102 and get Drake May plus. The reason why I say that is Drake May looks like a stud quarterback, and he's just in the shadows. He's got it all. He's got the leadership, the composure. He's doing what he can, and he looks like the most pro-ready quarterback in this draft. Not saying that Caleb Williams doesn't look pro-ready, but like we said, we saw Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's nothing on the field with Caleb Williams is pro-ready. It's kind of the mouth.
It's the mouth, yeah.
And we're not here to completely examine that. I just watched enough football to know it hurts your draft value. It hurts your ability for franchises to endorse you, because if you're giving the media any thread to pull, it's just extra work for your franchise. So Caleb Williams looks great on the field, and also USC doesn't have a defense. So I was
going to say, too, he's making these plays against Pac-12 defenses, not NFL. It's just the dynamic changes in the NFL, and so I would just say people need to be wary of. And Davis and I talked about this off air last week, and we were just talking about, he obviously being a USC fan is a huge advocate for Caleb Williams. I'm just saying, and I'm not saying, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying Caleb Williams is going to be trash. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying let's step back and be realistic about it. But what do you think? Are you still touting Caleb Williams, or what's?
No, I think Caleb Williams is a great QB, but I think it's always you know where I've stood, and even on the off-air show and other places we've talked, I'm all about trading back, because I don't think the gap between Caleb Williams and Drake May, there's a ton of factors. If you can profit off of Caleb Williams, if for some reason Caleb Williams is valued the same way Patrick Mahomes is before he ever plays an NFL snap, you should sell immediately. If in keep trade cut, he's worth 8,500 plus points, which I know where that is, you should sell immediately, because the worst thing that could happen is that you break even. The absolute worst thing that could happen is that Caleb Williams is as good as he is hyped to be. This might actually help his value long-term, because he'll come into the NFL with more grounded expectations. We're not the only ones saying that Caleb Williams, hey, there's some questions. And it's not just about the mouth. It's about, hey, Drake May's been a great prospect. So I completely agree with you. And as we go through the rookies that we have this year, just keep in mind, if you had traded back on most of these guys, you'd probably be a happy camper. So delayed gratification, to me, is the key to dominating your dynasty league. It is hard to do, because when your friends talk smack and you want to beat them, it's a very real thing. But speaking of quarterbacks, we've talked at length about C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson. They're very good. You are keeping them. If you can trade for them, you're probably still trading at a peak. Not a lot we need to talk about. We love them. We as a show believe they're great. I want to talk about Bryce Young. He is currently the quarterback 30 in fantasy. Now, he's had a bye week. He's on pace for only 2,700 passing yards and 17 touchdowns. Here's my question. Scott Fitterer is the GM, which, by the way, I didn't even know Scott Fitterer was like the GM, because in my head, David Tepper was calling all of the shots. What is your timeline on Bryce Young? If you were a Bryce Young owner, you probably can't sell right now because the value is so depreciated. In terms of adjusting your expectations, I believe it's going to be 3 years before this guy's relevant. I believe you should hold.
I agree. And I love even starting off with Caleb Williams, because this is exactly what I said way back in the offseason when we were talking about this upcoming rookie class of CJ Stroud, A-Rich, and Young. I had it ranked A-Rich 1, Stroud 2, and Young 3 for a reason. Like, he was being touted as an incredible quarterback. It is different when you get to the NFL.
Steph Curry of the position.
Yes, exactly. The Steph Curry of the position. So for Bryce Young, I just think you're right. Like, it's going to take time. And if that, like, I just don't see him being an elite quarterback. I don't see him being a top 5 fantasy type quarterback. I see him being a very good quarterback. I see him, like, he can have that, like, back end QB1, top end, like high end QB2. I just don't think he'll ever be touted to me as a top 5 guy.
Yeah, for fantasy purposes, I don't see it, especially in Carolina. Here's the good news. We watched Baker Mayfield tonight. When you were the 101 in an NFL draft, any NFL draft, you just get way more chances. Because even if for whatever reason it absolutely crashes and burns in Carolina, and the reason I'm not, no one's saying that that's going to happen, but they are 1-6, Frank Reich doesn't look like the right hire. Like, it could get weird within 3 years. They may not want to give him a second contract. Someone will give him another chance. And so I think Bryce Young is a safe piece, and I do think that he's at his floor. But for fantasy purposes, Dylan, I agree with you. I never saw the rushing upside. I just don't see an easy path where he's a fantasy relevant quarterback. And if you paid a high end, Davis used the 102 on him in the Yacht Club.
That's what I'm saying. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
like size matters too. Size matters. I don't care. And I'm saying that, like, not because I think it's injury wise.
It absolutely does.
Can I goodness gracious, get me someone else on here.
What?
Where's Davis? No, I'm kidding.
Continue.
No, size matters because of the fact that injury, yes, of course that matters for injury, but also you're seeing like there's issues with him just delivering the ball how he did in college because everyone is bigger. Not just his line is bigger, the defenders are bigger. Everyone is bigger. The play is fast. So I'm just concerned about him being considered a top even 10 or QB1.
He's going to be a starter in the NFL for 3 years. He has 3 years to prove it, but I don't think he'll be fantasy relevant in any of those 3 years. And even if he does and builds around him, you just have to be really patient with Bryce Young, or you have to find someone who's willing to believe in him if you're going to sell him. Someone who I didn't even realize he was a rookie, who has the opposite situation of Bryce Young, where it's like, hey, he has to win every single game to be relevant. Tyson Bagnet is how I'm going to say it, because I can't pronounce Bagnet.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Bagnet, right? Tyson Bagnet. First of all, I didn't know that. Here's what I would say. I wasn't concerned at all. I'm the Justin Fields owner. You know how much I love Justin Fields. We talked about Justin Fields. Tyson Bagnet gets a win against the Jimmy Garoppolo-less Raiders. And the question is like, oh, do we got a guy here? I don't think so. But then I found out his dad is 28 times. Have you seen the video about this?
Yes.
His dad is an arm wrestling champion 28 times and is an absolute dude. Like, he's like a bro.
Him and Dan Campbell will probably hang out on the weekends.
100%. He has this thing with Tom Pelissero. I don't know if we can include the clip or find the clip and include it in the description, but he's like a super cool guy. And I was like, okay, crap, maybe Tyson's, maybe he's a someone. Here's what I'm saying. If you have Tyson for whatever reason, you got him off Dynasty waivers. He might still be on Dynasty waivers. He fits squarely into the category for me of cool backups that you root for as a person, but isn't really going to be long-term fantasy relevant. He lost the game against the Vikings because he threw an interception, a costly one at the end of the game. He doesn't have first-round draft capital. In fact, he has no draft capital. This was a Division II player.
D2 guy,
yeah. And so he could be great. The problem is not many people are going to give him a long-term chance. So he has to win out and be statistically awesome. He wasn't statistically awesome. He was serviceable. I think he's a great backup. I root for him like Taylor Heineke, like Cooper Rush.
That's it.
I think he's cool,
he's a
and
backup.
He should be rostered. Yeah,
he's a backup. He's going to be one of those guys. He's not going to be a guy that you're going to want to go and get. Like, once Justin Fields gets the okay with his thumb, I think it's a thumb. It's a hand injury.
Yeah, it's a thumb. He dislocated his thumb. Yeah.
Yeah. Once he gets the go,
I prayed for him every single night. I've sacrificed goats to make sure he gets back.
I'm not a Justin Fields fan, but Tyson Bagnet is not going to keep Justin Fields off the field. It's just not going to happen. He looked good. He won a game. That's great. Good for him. Have him celebrate that moment. But he's back to the bench when Fields is healthy, unfortunately.
Last quarterback I want to talk about is the definition of a dart throw, because we agree that Tyson's always going to be a backup, but Will Levis is looking like he's going to get the start for the Tennessee Titans with Ryan Tannehill out. This was the 33rd overall pick. At one point, there were odds in sportsbooks that he was going to be like the 104. He was going to go to the Colts in the NFL draft, and he slid in the draft, and he went to fantasy irrelevance. Dylan, is there any gamble that you would take to go trade for a Will Levis on the off chance that maybe he's a dude come Sunday mornings, come Sunday evenings, that he can be a fantasy superstar? Because right now, I feel like he's cheap.
He's definitely cheap. Yes, I agree with that. If I can get him for that price, yes. Like, what are we talking, a second? Is that what you're saying by cheap? Like throwing a second out?
And here's what I would say.
Like, shot on him.
This is like a complete gamble. Speaking of parlays, I had one hit tonight on Josh Allen. This is like an 8 to 10 leg parlay, because you probably have to pay a little bit up. I would say this. If you want to trade for Will Levis, that's fine. If you're the Will Levis owner, I think you should probably, if you can get a second or a third, ship the gamble out. I don't see an easy path for him to hit, but like, I know you want to see him start one single game, but I don't think you can fairly evaluate him. I'm spoiling my own analysis.
Well, no,
here,
I just think if I can get him for cheap, meaning a second, I'm going to get him, because I think he's good enough to keep Malik Willis off the field, and I don't think Tannehill I don't know if Tannehill sees the field again as a Titan. I don't know if they trade him. It doesn't seem like, why would they at this point? They're not in contention. It doesn't look like they're going to compete, especially if they're offering to sell Derrick Henry and D-Hop and all these, and Bynard's gone now. So if they're going to sell these older players, I don't think they're going to compete. Therefore, I don't know why they would waste their time seeing if Tannehill's their future, right?
Yeah.
So I think Levis is good enough. He has the arm talent. It comes down to coaching. I don't know about that.
Would you trade if you had if you're a tanking team like me, and I have a lot of excess capital. If I had 2 seconds, and I have mostly first, so I don't have a lot of seconds, but like, is he worth 2 seconds just to take the dart throw?
25
if I
seconds?
Had multiple firsts? Yeah, sure.
Yes. Yeah. I would
think
do
it's a worthy
25
dart throw.
seconds. With the volume of capital you have as well, yeah, I would do that.
Yeah. I think if it hits, it's like, okay, I got a guy. Maybe that could be really good because Will Levis was really good, not his seniors. I don't want to call it his senior season, but like his last season in college. But the season before that, he would have been a much higher draft pick, but he didn't declare. He stayed, and it hurt his value. He'll be fun to watch Sunday simply because he could spike in value. But for most leagues, Will Levis is still not going to be fantasy relevant no matter how you slice it.
But he also does have, I will say this about Will Levis, he does have sneaky rushing upside as well, which we talked about Malik Willis having as well. I just think Will Levis is a better quarterback.
He's someone to pay attention to.
Yes, and definitely pay attention to him.
Just real quick to summarize. CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, awesome, great. Bryce Young, would you trade him away for the 105 or higher if in 2024?
Probably not, because I think you can get more. Would I trade him for that? Yes, I would get more. You can get more on top of him. Yeah, if you're trading the 105, I think you can get 105 plus.
I don't know that you can, man. I don't know that people are that patient. I really don't with rookie quarterbacks anymore, especially when you have teams performing as high.
What if you could do this? This is what I would do. Speaking of Mr. Baker Mayfield, I would do Baker Mayfield in the 105.
Yeah.
Like if someone offered me Baker Mayfield in 105 for Bryce Young, I would do that. Yes.
Smash accept.
Give me a shot at Jordan Travis and all those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Keon Coleman, maybe if you have.
To replace him, like if you're getting a shot at Jordan Travis, Michael Penix Jr., like Bo Nix, any of those guys, like give me a dart throw and a quarterback that I can play. Yeah. Or Keon Coleman, like you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can start Baker until that quarterback develops, because that's the thing is, if you're depending on Bryce right now, you're a very unhappy camper.
Yeah. Davis is going to be pissed when he hears that, by the way.
I'm sure
I'm so glad he's not going to be here.
This is good. Listen, we got to talk about a player Davis is passionate about. We're going to talk about all the top tier running backs. I want to start off the top. Bijan, Gibbs, and Devon Achane. I want you, like, before we get into these analysis in this rookie review, keep trade cut those players right now.
Bijan, Gibbs. Okay. I'm keeping Bijan.
Okay.
I'm trading Achane because he's the most value, and I'll cut Gibbs right now.
Okay. So we agree on the cut, not because Gibbs is bad. He showed out well when David Montgomery was gone, but that's kind of the key. I think there's going to be volume issues for Gibbs long term. I think he's going to be good, high-end RB2. I think that's what you have come to expect with Gibbs. Hopefully you weren't counting on him above everything. Once again, not in Yacht Club. In another Dynasty League, I had Gibbs. I almost traded him and like Brock Purdy and like all these things for like Christian McCaffrey. I'm really glad I waited a week because Gibbs is still very young.
That is, I will say that is a theme too. As we're talking about these rookies, realize that one of the things we're going to keep talking about is patience. I've said it before. Be patient with your rookies. Gibbs paid off for you for being patient, right?
Yeah. No, you can't panic on someone like that. This is a really good running back. And always, you got to be patient with guys who still pass the eye test. I think that's key.
Yes.
If you see something on film that you're like, okay, I don't love that. Maybe, because the other thing you got to think about too is when you own a rookie, you're watching your rookies. Like we're all like, oh, my team's so good. Like other people may not be paying attention to what's going on the field. We'll talk about Quentin Johnston later, but that's kind of what happened for me when I traded him away. We're going to touch on the wide receivers. Getting back to the keep trade cut, I struggled with this one a lot. I between Achane and Bijan being the keep. Because you said keep Bijan, and it's not just to disagree with you, but it's just to provide, well, it is sort of just to disagree. I'm going to change my answer back to my original one. I'm going to keep Achane. I'm going to trade Bijan because Bijan still carries such a strong name and such a strong expectation that it will be figured out. If you exclude the sick game, which I'm not saying you should because everyone started it. This last week, he only ran for 3 yards. Yeah, but that's not a game that you would count against his touches per game or his touchdowns per game. Do you know what he's on pace for a fine year if you exclude this last week? He's on pace for 1,147 yards. That's that's 13 and a half carries a game at 230 carries. The problem is 0 rushing touchdowns. I believe that's going to regret. I do believe that's going to get back to an average. I do think the rushing touchdowns will come towards the end of the season for Bijan.
Positive regression.
Yeah, exactly. He's on pace for 73 and 535 through the air, which is really where all of his value is coming from as a pass catcher. So his floor is as safe as you can get. But the reason I would keep Achane and the reason I switched is because I'm all about that upside. Shout out to Ian Hartitz or Hartz. Is it Hartitz or Hart? I don't know. He is
Hartitz.
One of my favorite follows on X, aka Twitter. He is also a writer for the Fantasy Life. Shout out Matthew Berry, which if you have not subscribed to the Fantasy Life, what are you doing? We do it. We should try to get Ian on the show because he seems like a cool guy. He tweeted an incredible graph talking about players averaging yards after contact as well as forced missed tackles on a play. There's like the grouping of the whole chart, like a normal, like average grouping. And then there's Achane like skyrocketed to the right. He is averaging 7.5 yards after contact. Give me that upside. Give me the guy who only needs 10 touches a game in the right offense and in the right system to win me fantasy weeks over the course of his career over the guy who's a floor play with a head coach that seems to hate fantasy players.
I'm an Achane fan. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big Achane guy. You know that. But the injury does scare me a little bit because of his size, like him being smaller. It does worry me a little bit. So that's why I would trade him and keep Bijan. But question about Bijan for you. Yeah. If you're a Bijan owner, right? You had the 101. Let's say you were Davis. He has Bijan in the Yacht Club. Davis had the 101. We told the story about how he nagged Mike for days, weeks, months, basically, to get that 101 to get Bijan. If you were Davis and you had Bijan, you had the 101 for that long, are you kicking yourself a little bit for not selling the 101 or selling Bijan for the premium that you could have got?
Man, I mean,
and trading back and getting like A-Rich?
He's the self-proclaimed value king. No, the main thing is he drafted Bryce Young over A-Rich. He would have been fine because he had all that capital. He still drafted Bryce Young. So
that's true.
No, I think the issue is you have to go get a championship. And I think Bijan was the player that screamed, this will help me win a championship the most.
Well, set that aside, actually. So like not even that specific situation. Yeah, I'm just saying
everyone should have. And this goes back to why we talked about Caleb Williams at length. If you had sold Bijan at the 101, if he turned into Christian McCaffrey, you would have broken even. Christian McCaffrey in the Yacht Club has never traded for 3 firsts. If you're trading a running back for 3 firsts, I don't care who it is. If it's LaDainian Tomlinson mixed with Adrian Peterson, and it's like, I'm going to be here for 10 years.
Yes, and that's exactly why. That's exactly why earlier when I was talking about Caleb Williams, if you can trade him and get the 102, if you could just trade back, anything that you get on top of it is going to be worth it. Think about what Bijan was going for, bro. Like, dude, the 101.
He went for Anthony Richardson, Geno Smith. Is it Josh Downs? Maybe I forget the exact, it was insane. It was insane. And it's not that Bijan's a bad player. You're disappointed because the landing spot did hurt his value. You've got to hang on to him. You're not going anywhere, but this is just a lesson in that gamesmanship that we talked about earlier. It's like, hey, production, if I can sell hype for extra production, you need to do that every time. Speaking of production, we're going to talk about all these guys in tiers. The trade deadline is Tuesday of next week. By the time you're listening to this, for the NFL, Tajae Spears is in his own tier because he is at like 50-something% snap percentage every week. It was like 53, 56. This is the backup to Derrick Henry, if you don't know. But Tajae Spears is getting plenty of work on the field. And if Derrick Henry is to be traded, which there's been a lot of rumors he's going to, Tajae Spears becomes one of the big name running backs from this rookie class you need to pay attention to because he's looked good in the limited work he's had, and the snap percentage is already there. Unfortunately, the Titans offense is kind of bad, but I want to jump to kind of these tier 2 running backs, Dylan. Zach Charbonnet, Kendre Miller, Roshon Johnson. Here's what you're doing with those guys, in my opinion, and I'll just get your time on it really quick. Charbonnet is valuable to the Ken Walker owner. If you're not the Ken Walker owner, either trade for Ken Walker or trade him to the Ken Walker owner because he is a very good running back, but he is like Rashad Penny to Chris Carson, except Ken Walker is 3 times the running back Chris Carson is.
I'm going to counter that only real quickly because right now, Ken Walker's hurt. That's been the biggest thing. Ken Walker mispracticed. He's mispracticed, though. He mispracticed today.
Right, but once again, like it's not like you can start Charbonnet. You're just waiting for Ken Walker to get injured.
Well,
That's
no,
most
all I'm
valuable
saying
to the
is
Ken
don't.
Walker owner.
I'm just saying if you have Charbonnet, don't be so angsty to go trade him away. Wait until it's inevitable. It is inevitable as a running back. They're going to get hurt. They're going to go down, whether it's for
Miss
a
a little
game,
time.
whatever it is. Yes, it's inevitable for them to not miss time. So hold Charbonnet until, and then you can sell him to the owner, or you can
Okay,
see what you got.
hey,
I don't know. I would say
I respect that.
be patient. Be patient. You don't know.
You're not saying don't sell him to the Ken Walker owner. You're saying wait for maximum value.
Correct. Don't
That's
just
some
sell
games
him at all.
that encourages me because we've had some talks about trades this year where you've just been like, "This is my guy," and I believe in it. I'm like, no, that's good timing of the market. Kendre Miller, man, there was a lot of excitement around him, especially with Kamara missing games, and then Jamal Williams got injured, and then he just couldn't get on the field at the right time. Alvin Kamara is currently a satellite and is catching every single football that remotely orbits him. Alvin Kamara still has plenty of juice. I don't see a path for Kendre Miller. Once again, I treat this as a handcuff. Do you concur?
Yeah, I'm just proud that you said his name right. We've corrected you so many times. Davis and I, we'll be prepping for the show, and Josh's like, "Oh yeah, I think we should talk about Keandre Miller." I'm like, "Josh, it's Kendre." So
Okay.
no, seriously, I'm applauding you because that's growth. We applaud growth here.
I'm just going to mispronounce the rest of the players just to vex you.
No, but I agree. Yes, Kendre Miller, he had all the opportunity in the world to prove that he was something, and he got hurt with a lingering injury. And then even when he was given the opportunity, he just didn't do much with it. At this point, if you have Kendre Miller, hold. Just hold.
Yeah.
You don't sell him for a third, just hold.
Yeah,
because that backfield is old.
I think almost there's one guy in this tier. We're going to be talking about Kendre Miller and Roshon Johnson next. Or forgive me, Tank Bigsby and Roshon Johnson next. All these guys to me are handcuffs, save Roshon. Tank Bigsby, I'm doing the exact same. Whatever I said about Charbonnet, say Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne. Yeah, copy paste. If you have any additional thoughts, Dylan, I'd love to hear them. But to me, Roshon Johnson is the only trade for target in this tier outside of being an owner of the running, the running back that these handcuffs would ensure. Roshon Johnson, once he's healthy, I think he's might be the most talented back Chicago has. We saw what Deontay Foreman did on the ground against a bad defense. This team, the Chicago Bears, will win if they can stay on the ground and use Justin Fields on the ground as well. And Roshon early on was already the third down back. He's a good pass catcher. I think Roshon has sneaky upside. He's a trade for candidate for me simply because I've already seen it on the NFL field. He's always just been overshadowed. It was always with Bijan at Texas, and now he's on the Bears. It's like it's injury. Yeah, Roshon's a stud. I'm targeting him in every league that I can find because I think he could be not just good, but like league winning, really good.
Of all the guys that we've talked about, he's the one that I would go and buy because he's relatively cheap right now, and I would say that as a contender, as a rebuild, I think he's going to be. I'm not telling you he's going to be the next Bijan or Achane or Gibbs. No, he's not going to be that, but he will be a serviceable back. He'll be another Khalil Herbert, who Khalil Herbert's been great when he's healthy, right? That's part of why Roshon can't get on the field. So I think he'll be another one of those backs that will produce. He may be part of committee, but he'll produce.
But Herbert's on IR, yeah. So if Roshon can get back before then, he can maybe take the job. So that would be good. Yeah. Listen, I want to get to some big name wide receivers. And listen, if you're listening to this and you're like, dude, some of this is obvious knowledge, we know. But we have to cover it, and we want to cover it because we do not want to let a single one of our owners or listeners down on this is what we would do, because that's what you're hanging on to. If Matthew Berry is wondering what Josh, Dylan, and Davis think about certain players, you should be too. God, a bunch of my friends were like, what's the over-under? Josh brings that up this week. And I was like, 15.5.
Oh, they're tallying right now. They're tallying. We set the line at 15 and I'll smash the over. Yeah.
We absolutely smashed the over. JSN. You said it. He was the biggest name when we talked about being patient with your rookies. JSN, he had a breakout game. I'm going to put that in parentheses. For the Seahawks this last week, caught his first touchdown. Listen, he has yet to eclipse like 75 yards. Not like 75 yards. He has yet to eclipse 75 yards. He has yet to eclipse 7 receptions. How patient? I know you have to be patient with JSN because he's a great prospect. How patient do you really have to be, in your opinion, Dylan? Because I have kind of a window of time when this works, but I want to hear from you first.
Yeah, I mean, patient. With JSN, I'm being patient. He was the first receiver taken this year in the draft. We know what he did in college. We don't need to remind people. He was elite. Yes, he missed that season, whatever. It's great. Take that in consideration. Take the fact that he missed an entire season of football, and now he's getting back on the field finally. On top of that, he's in the NFL. On top of that, he's behind Tyler Lockett. What convinced me
and
this
DK
week,
Metcalf.
Yes, but DK Metcalf is there to stay. Tyler
Yeah.
Lockett is a variable that I think could actually change soon. I don't know if it would be trade. I don't know what it would be if they cut him, whatever. I just think you need to be patient on JSN because he's the clear cut to be the number 2. I understand Jake Bobo had a good game.
Yeah, but
I like
put a
Jake
number
Bobo.
like when is okay? It's the year 2020 blank, and JSN is a top 10 dynasty wide receiver. What year is that? Because to me, I think it's 3 years from now. I
think
looked at
it's
when
2.
Tyler Lockett broke out. You think it's just 2?
I think it's 2.
Okay.
I think next year he takes a step, as in top 10, it'll be 2. Next year, I think he takes a step. Him and DK are viewed as, well, actually, it could be as soon as next year. As the way that we react as dynasty players, as soon as JSN produces what even Tyler Lockett was producing, he's a top 10 easily.
Yeah,
easily.
No,
he's top 10.
We similar to talking about Stroud and Anthony Richardson. We don't need to talk about Puka Nacua. You have a certified superstar.
I'm not talking about that guy.
You don't want to. The only reason Puka Nacua isn't a top 3 dynasty wide receiver right now is that he was a 5th round pick in the NFL draft, and his name isn't JSN. If JSN was doing what Puka Nacua was doing, all of us would have anointed him
wide receiver 3.
because
he'd be wide receiver 3.
Yeah, Chase Jefferson, and he might have be ahead of Chase and Jefferson because it's like Puka Nacua is having the best rookie year of all time, and we don't want to talk about it because it's like, well, no one saw this coming. We mentioned it on the show where we had Charles Robinson as a guest. Like, he's someone to pay attention to. No one saw Puka Nacua coming. He's awesome. But JSN, I think his value is going to hold because the expectation is that he's great and that he just needs the opportunity.
Well, bro,
I think it's going to be long.
He's already wide receiver 16. Already wide receiver 16. What more does he have to do to jump 6 places?
You're talking about on keep trade cut, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the market we go off of.
I know, but he's fallen from when he was drafted.
Well, yes, right? But I'm saying like it all it takes is him having he can produce the back end of this season as even the wide receiver 3 in Seattle, and he's going to either stay at 16 or I don't think he drops below 16 for the rest of the season, if I'm being honest.
I hear you.
So next year I can see the jump into top 10.
I think there's going to be some guys that jump him that we're going to be talking about next. But I mean, here's the last thing I'll say about JSN. If you sold him for multiple firsts and you were a win now team or a productive struggle team, congratulations, because I think JSN is 2 years away from being great. And I do believe he still can be great. You just have to be patient. Someone you don't have to be patient on is Quentin Johnston. In Yacht Club, I traded him away for a 24 first and an upgrade. I swapped 25 firsts for QJ. I traded him away to the Chargers owner. This is the alarm bells, okay? The whole thing with Quentin Johnston is you can be patient with him because Mike Williams needs to get injured, and he will, and he'll be out of the way. Quentin Johnston, in a absolute barn burner a game against the Chiefs, I don't even know how many points were put up. I just know Patrick Mahomes torched me in one league for like 4 touchdowns. It was disgusting. He had 1 catch for 20 yards, okay? I think that's his best stat line as well, 2.5 fantasy points.
Yeah. Someone posted on Twitter. This is funny. They posted, they're like, oh, Quentin Johnston's week 7 highlights last week. And this is 1 catch. I was like, week 7? That's a season highlights. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like that 1 catch is his season highlights.
I would be brave and say maybe he's a buy low candidate.
No, miss me.
But I wouldn't. If you a single second,
nope.
If you could trade a single,
no, 24 second, no. I want a shot at Xavier Leggett, who's going to be there in the second round next year. Like this wide receiver class is so deep. Give me a shot at McMillan, any of those guys over. You know how I feel about Quentin Johnston. We talked about him from day one.
Yeah, well, I thought he would pass the eye test. He's done the opposite of that. If you have Quentin Johnston, dude, you need to get out from under him as soon as humanly possible. Take a loss.
Get a second for him. Take the loss and just re-roll it into this next wide receiver class.
I would try to go get like a couple dart throws over even a second. Go get like multiple of some.
Sure, start with a first. Trade
him away. What we agree on is trade him away.
But start with a first. Like if you can go and start with a 25
first. Yeah. 25. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Jordan Addison went off, absolutely destroyed the San Francisco 49ers. He has 6 touchdowns on the year. Jordan Addison is not just the future. He is the present. With Justin Jefferson gone, he is stepping up big time. Is he at his peak value right now, though? That's my only question. I know he's not going anywhere. I know he's not going to be like bad or anything like that. I don't believe that whatsoever. But we've just talked about selling Bijan, selling Bryce Young. Those were guys you should have sold. Caleb Williams at peak value. Do you maybe sell? Would you rather sell Jordan Addison right now for like a DK Metcalf plus because people are high on both the youth and production? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
that's the only question.
But Jordan Addison is so situational to me. Like if you have the time to kind of wait and see what he's going to be, he's going to produce. So like this
Yeah.
window while Justin Jefferson's out, you're going to see him produce and it's going to be great. You're going to get some production from him. If you're looking to sell, you better sell within that window because when Justin Jefferson gets back, I don't think he's going to fall off. We even saw him produce when Justin Jefferson was healthy. The biggest question mark to me is Kirk Cousins. I don't know what that offense
What's the
looks like
future
without Kirk
there?
Cousins. Yes, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, that's a great question. And if you're pairing it with the Caleb Williams or the Drake May, which doesn't look like they will because it looks like they're going to keep winning, and maybe Jettis comes back, so they try to compete for playoffs. So it was in a mid-round pick. There's a lot of questions about his future, but man, he passes the eye test. So if you have Addison, you're more than happy. You can go any direction with him really and be happy. The last player, kind of in the big name wide receivers, Zay Flowers. I have been not a Zay Flowers hater. I haven't intended to be, but I've come off like one because of Mike's love for him. He traded 5 seconds for him, and I was like, that is so foolish. Like, you shouldn't do that. You have been like, I'd rather have Zay Flowers, Treylon Burks over George Pickens. And so because I was always defending George Pickens, who is a stud, side note.
You had to get that plug in there.
It's just the truth. Sorry that I'm bringing up facts on a show about facts.
He's a good wide receiver. He's not a top 10 wide receiver, but carry on.
I mean, no, not yet. But Zay Flowers, because I was always comparing him to other guys I loved, I wasn't giving him his correct credit. This guy's a great player. And here's what's key. The offense around the Ravens just this last week started to click. Rashad Bateman didn't have a good game in the box score, but him and Odell Beckham continued to extend drives. And so Zay Flowers was actually able to, get more offensive snaps. The entire offense clicked because the supporting cast stepped up. Lamar Jackson had a better game, but Zay Flowers has been the constant. He's the wide receiver 25 on the year. Mind you, he hasn't had a bye week yet, and he hasn't had any injuries, but he's only had 1 touchdown, and I think that can increase. I think they also, here's what I love about it, they use him really well. This guy is kind of
Hold up. I remember 2 weeks ago you were saying, we had this very conversation about Zay Flowers, and remember you were sitting here saying that his production or his usage was poor. Remember you were in the Todd Monken offense. So curious, what changed? What changed for you?
The Rashad Bateman actually caught the downfield target. I thought I kind of was clear about that. Odell Beckham started to click downfield a little bit better. When your best wide receiver isn't getting the downfield targets that other guys are dropping, that's what you need to use. What I'm saying is I trust Todd Monken more because Rashad Bateman and Odell actually were able to convert and keep the drive going. And a 5'9", 180-pound guy who can make guys miss constantly. My concern with Zay was kind of the touch pass stuff near the tackle box when he's kind of doing the not end arounds completely. I'm
the gadget. Because I think the word that I think you and Davis both said it was gadget.
I don't like the gadget use. No,
I'm
I'm fine with him being Deontay Johnson underneath. That's cool. But if the only way you're getting him the ball is gadget plays, that's a problem. And the other thing is you need someone to stretch the field because the middle of the field to me is owned by Mark Andrews. But I say all that to say Zay Flowers is a very good wide receiver, and you should be very, very happy if you have him. I don't think that there's much to talk about. He just hasn't eclipsed 100 yards yet. He's going to be touchdown dependent, but what he lacks in yardage, he makes up for in receptions because he has been catching a ton of dink and dunk passes.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I would prioritize getting Zay Flowers over Jordan Addison long term in Dynasty. I would have him ranked over Jordan Addison.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a screaming value because Addison you probably couldn't get for a first plus right now. If you offered the 105, if you offered Keon, would you rather have Keon Coleman, who I believe is the 105, right?
Oof.
Right. Would you rather have Keon Coleman or Zay Flowers?
Oh, I think I'm taking Keon. I love Keon Coleman. Yeah, give me Keon Coleman.
Wide receiver for Florida State. Complete sidebar. We are talking so much football. I love this. We're just getting lost in the weeds tonight. Florida State is the most under the radar 4 seed in college football right now. And I'm not a college football fan, and I know that. No one talks about them. No one watches them. And they have an unbelievable quarterback in Jordan Travis, who's going to be a draft day value. And they have an unbelievable wide receiver in Keon Coleman. And he's not the only pass catcher there that's good. There's a tight end that I love and another big wide receiver. So
Jaheim Bell and Johnny Wilson. Yes. Keon Coleman is going to be a stud. So to answer your question, yes, I'm taking not Johnny Wilson. Definitely not Johnny Wilson. Keon Coleman over Zay Flowers. I'll take my shot.
Go get your guy, Dylan. I would love that so much if you somehow ended up with the 105 and you took a Johnny Wilson.
Listen, we're talking Zay Flowers, who's 5'9", 180. stud, super fast. Give me 6'4", 215, fast. It's an 80-20 ball anytime it's up in the air. Yes, give me that for Keon Coleman over Zay Flowers.
No, I love it. Really quickly, and I do want to move quickly through these guys. We can just say buy, sell, hold. But I do want to touch on this kind of second tier of running back, and there are some gems in this list. Forgive me, wide receiver. We've been talking a long time. Josh Downs, Marvin Mims, Rashee Rice, Michael Wilson, Tank Dell, and Jaden Reed. Josh Downs, buy, sell, or hold?
Buy.
Buy or hold. If you have him, I wouldn't sell him right now. He's just now beginning to find his form.
I'm not selling him. I'm buying if I can get him, hoping to just get him before he peaks.
One caveat to him, I know he just had a great game. Who did they play? I'm trying to remember. Cleveland. Yeah, they put up a ton of points on Cleveland. Did you know that the Shane Steichen offense is the only offense in the NFL to average 20-plus points every single game, even with Minshew at QB?
Gee, who would have thought?
I have been saying from the start, Shane Steichen is a great coach. I only wish you'd been listening to me, Dylan. Moving on. Hey, Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims is I have no idea what to do with Marvin Mims, to be honest. I love the prospect.
So I got
the quarterback
something for you.
Yeah,
I got something for you. So Mike and I actually were talking this morning. We got a deal done. Not the original deal we were talking about, because the original deal that we were talking about was for Marvin Mims last night. And I want your thoughts on this, right?
Yeah.
So we were going back and forth, and I totally understand Mike's stance on Marvin Mims. He values him. He doesn't overvalue him by any means. He wanted a 25-second, because I had a 25-second at the time, an early 24 third, and then something else on top for Marvin Mims. Where the conversation stalled and we went the other direction with the trade that we actually completed was I just couldn't get myself to give up 3 assets just to get Marvin Mims. I understand he's young, he's had some boom games, but But what I was wrestling with and what I was struggling with is like, what do you pay for a Marvin Mims? Like, I don't know. And that's because I really actually want Marvin Mims. Had it been just the 25-second, I probably would have done that.
I'm glad we're talking about this, because I'm just realizing how confusing of a player he is. I love what I see on film for the most part. He makes some boneheaded mistakes, like on special teams and some fumbles, just some weird, like he muffed a punt or two that I've seen, and you don't love to see that, but he is electric with the ball in his hands. And he was an incredible player at Oklahoma on just the deep passes, but it doesn't seem like they use him that way all that much. Like some of his best fantasy games have been like 2 catches for
literally, if you look at his targets, it's like I don't think he has higher than 5 targets on the season. But he has 2 boom games.
Bro, he's been given lemons and he's made lemon meringue. Like, he's awesome. Like, I'm a big fan, but
not to mention, like, Sean Payton traded up to get him. It was the first pick that they took. So I just think part of the reason why I wanted to buy him too, and I'll add this since we're talking about him, is they're going to get rid of either Judy and or Sutton. It's going to happen. Well, even if it's not at the trade deadline, again, we play Dynasty. So my point exactly. Yeah. So with that, what the offer that I was talking about originally with the 25-second, the 24 third, and a little sweetener, do you still think that's an overpay given all that context?
For you, yeah. Yeah, for you, yeah. When you're in a, that's the thing is, like, if you have a ton of capital, you can afford to do that. But it's so team dependent. Like, if you're a rebuilding team and all you have is picks, go get a Marvin Mims. Go spend a couple thirds plus a second. That's fine. But for you, you're kind of that productive struggle and you have like 5 or 6 seconds, I think. That's your bankroll. Like, you've had to tear down and compete less to get those seconds. You need to draft players and hope they hit like a Puca Nacua has hit. Rashee Rice. There's a player that if you spent a second on, you feel like you've hit right now, because Rashee Rice is having a great rookie season, especially given the context of an Andy Reid wide receiver. His snap percentage is low, but every time he gets on the field, he gets targeted. And he's been the best wide receiver for the Chiefs, and it's not been close. It's been Travis Kelce and then Rashee Rice. Yep. He's the second best target for Patrick Mahomes. The question is, would you pay a late 24 first to go get Rashee Rice and plant your flag now? Because he has certainly gone up in value for me.
Late 24 first, no. I'm not trading any 24 first for Rashee Rice. He's definitely gone up in value. I would try to get him for 2 seconds. I would do 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get that.
No, I wouldn't. I take that back. I wouldn't do that.
Why would you not?
I understand he's ascending.
He's connected to your red. Yeah,
I understand he's ascending. And if you have Rashee Rice, we're talking about being patient. Along with your patience, as soon as they pop, don't trade. Don't just flip them. Like hold on to some. You've got to have some discernment there, which is tough. I understand that's part of dynasty fantasy football. Rashee Rice is one of those guys that I would wait and see on. I wouldn't give.
Yeah.
I would now if someone offered me a 24 first, he's gone. He's adios. He's out. He's off my team. But I don't think I would spend a 24 first on him. I would send a second, and I would probably do 2 seconds. I'm hesitant,
This is
but
league.
I'm definitely
First of
not
all,
doing
the price points are league dependent, so I get that. All I'm saying is I would overpay for Rashee Rice right now because you're seeing more than enough. They've been looking for a wide receiver replacement since Tyreek Hill in both free agency and the draft. One of them is finally showing up big time. I love Sky Moore. I'm out. It's done. Rashee Rice has shown me he's like 6 times received. I would go get Rashee Rice, man. I wouldn't. I'd be happy to plant like a late 24 first to go get a Rashee Rice because it's like, why would you take the risk when you've already seen what you need to see connected to the best quarterback in football?
Because they could easily bring someone else in, and they probably will bring someone else in if it's not before the trade deadline or in the offseason. We just talked about the 24 class is loaded with wide receivers. Loaded.
Yeah, I don't know.
So if they bring someone in, Rashee Rice, it's whatever flavor of the month, really, for other than Travis Kelce for Mahomes. And we know that. We saw that with Juju Smith-Schuster last year. It's just, I don't think I'm not saying Rashee Rice is going to be bad. And like I said, I would spend 2 seconds to go get him. But are you spending a 25 first and a second to go get him?
No. A single 25 first should more than suffice for Rashee Rice. But
no, you're telling me a single 25 first has the same value as a 24 first? A late 24 first?
Late one. Yeah, no, a mid to an early 25 first should be the same as a late.
Oh, so you would give an early 25 first.
Yeah.
So you'd give up Luther Burden to go get. Yeah.
I don't even know who that is, so we're going to move on.
You should have said, yeah.
No. Listen, also in this tier, Michael Wilson and Tank Dell. Michael Wilson's been pleasantly surprising. I'm excited to see him with Kyler Murray. The production hasn't been crazy good, but you've seen flashes that this could be a very good player in the NFL. Michael Wilson is a hold to maybe a buy low. But I want to talk about Tank Dell. Tank Dell is like of all the wide receivers we've talked about, this to me is the guy you need to go get above anyone else because he's a trade for candidate simply because he can help you this season. He's averaging 9.5 half PPR fantasy points per game. He's connected to a young QB who's still finding his legs and frankly is going to learn to throw
Stroud
touchdowns
found his
at a
legs.
higher.
Give him the respect. He's found his legs.
No, Stroud's a stud, but he's still a rookie, and rookies take time to develop, and specifically in throwing touchdowns. Rookie touchdowns are hard to come by. If he throws 25 touchdowns this season, I'll be blown away. Tank Dell in 2 years could be a top 15 guy easily, and this year I think he could finish as a wide receiver too, as is. He's a deep threat play. He's averaging 17.1 a catch. I love Tank Dell. And on top of that, the thing I love most, CJ Stroud specifically asked for him. It's in the draft. Speaking of Matthew Berry, Matthew Berry does a great special if you ever want to go back and be a nerd like me and listen to like draft research. He interviewed CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud asked for Tank Dell in person. He was like, go get me Tank Dell. I want to go get that guy. So
we need a montage of how many times you bring up Matthew Berry as one of the clips.
Oh, dude, we're hitting the over. We're hitting the over. Listen, you have a bucket list moping at haven't. Are you not excited and you're not celebrating?
I'm stoked. Listen, and no disrespect to Matthew Berry, that is the GOAT. I love the fact that he came on the pod. It's just funny how many times you bring it up. Nope, just give the kudos where it is. It's cool.
I'm trying to hit the over. Listen, good things happen in your life. You just celebrate them. It's only one show in. If it's show 10 and I keep bringing it up, that'll be a problem.
So you are over the moon on Tank Dell and his potential. You think that? Do you think that's?
Keep in mind, it's the price point. You can't go get Zay Flowers at a reasonable. You're paying superstar prices. Addison, you're paying superstar prices. Puca Nacua, he is a superstar. You're paying a superstar plus. I think Tank Dell, because of the shine of those other guys, is being a little bit overlooked. He's having a great rookie year, and in year 2 and in year 3, I think he could be a high-end fantasy producer.
Great is subjective, but yes, he's having a good rookie year. He's shown flashes. I think this week will be a telltale. It doesn't look like Robert Woods is going to play, so I'll be interested to see. I still think Nico Collins is the one there. I don't think Tank Dell's going to overtake that, and I just don't know that Tank Dell will. I don't know. I'm not sold on Tank Dell. And early on, I actually was. I think he's a great wide receiver. He's a great route runner. He showed, like, even at his size, he was the best separator in the draft. Like, he was the best separator for his size and what he did as a route runner. So I don't doubt
Mike
that.
isn't trading him to me. That's all I know. And Mike's going to be over the
What'd
moon
you
when he
offer
hears
him?
that. Well, before the season, I was like, I'll do a second plus. He's like, yeah, no. I offered a second and 2/3 for Puca before the season started. He's like, nah, I think I'm just going to hold. I know that
Well,
sounds
smart
crazy.
for him.
Yeah, I know, right? Lastly, Jaden Reed. You own Jaden Reed.
I do.
Very good start to his rookie year. A lot more touchdowns than you expect a rookie, to get, especially in an offense that isn't producing a lot. I'm just going to come right out and say it. I'm interested to see his production with Watson back. And also, I think he's deceptive on how good he's been because this last touchdown he caught was a tipped one. It wasn't even a target for him.
That was one touchdown. That was one touchdown.
It matters.
It
a lot
does
of
matter.
players are separated by a single touchdown.
It matters. But if you look at his production, he has 3 touchdowns on the season. 2 came in one game, and then he had the deflected one last game. I get that. But he still had games where, and I'm not touting these as like incredible stats, but for a rookie, I'll take it. Early on, 5 points. Then he had the 17-point boom. 7 points, 9
You're
points.
over here dogging on Tank Dell, and then you're going to wave the banner.
Consistency, bro. No, hold up.
Tank Dell is averaging 9.5 per game. Your boy's
That's because of his boom points. That's because of his one boom game. Look, we're about to settle this right now. Look at this.
This is the This is a classic example of an owner having rose-colored glasses. No, that's what I'm saying.
He's been pretty consistent.
He's been great. Tank Dell's been great. This is the rose-colored glasses every fantasy owner gets. Like, well, you got to understand my guy, his development, his process. I'm not out on Jaden Reed. I'm simply saying one of those touchdowns.
Right, I'm putting on my. Hold on. I got to put on my David hat. Yeah, Tank Dell is. Yeah, I'm taking Tank Dell over. Yeah, Jaden Reed. He's the
completely
best.
Changing my
give me
position.
give me Tank Dell.
I love it. Moving as the markets move.
Exactly.
Jaden Reed's good, but he's someone you're just holding on to see what happens. Or are you maybe selling high? I don't think you can sell high on 3.
No, he's again. I'm in the way. I am patient with my rookies. I have Jalen Hyatt on that team. Jalen Hyatt is a guy that. Please listen to me if you have Jalen Hyatt. Be patient. I'm not saying he's going to pay off. I have to disclaim he's not going to pay off as the next Justin Jefferson, but you're seeing he's getting the downfield targets, and when he does get them, he gets open. He gets open downfield. He's a burner. Hold on to Jalen Hyatt. Be patient. I'm doing the same thing with Jaden Reed.
Yeah. What about Cedric Tillman? Any thoughts on him? A similar deep threat? I have seen nothing
until that disaster of a team figures out what they're doing with that robbery that Deshaun Watson did. I want nothing to do with the pass catchers. Unfortunately, I have Elijah Moore, and I'm just holding. I literally holding on for dear life.
We've covered almost every single rookie of relevance. We already talked about Kincaid and Laporta. If you have Mayer or Musgrave at the tight end position, what I would just tell you is tight ends take a long time to break out. I've been encouraged by the flashes I've seen from both of those guys, but there's not a lot of actionable kind of stuff there. It's interesting. We are going to jump below deck, but before we do, I will just mention, Dylan, since you're so high on Jaden Reed, do you want to sell high? I have Jordan Love.
Yeah.
25 second.
No.
Come and get it.
Selling high? Dude, no. I know. No.
Please?
Because please?
Please?
No, absolutely not. No, that's not happening. No, thank you.
Would you believe it if I told you that maybe me being down on Jaden Reed the entire segment was to kind of like...
Of course, yes.
Okay.
You're trying to tank his value. That didn't work.
No,
yes,
I'm not trying to tank his value. I think he's a good wide receiver. I don't see the ceiling. But listen, that is the rookie review. We've talked about as many rookies as we can think of. If you were in a deeper league than us and we didn't cover a rookie that you wanted to, my hat's off to you. I'd love to see it in the comments because I feel like we touched everyone of relevance other than Chase Brown, who Mike was so high on earlier on in the season. He traded 2 seconds for, and Davis continues to rib him about. We have plenty of people in the Yacht Club ribbing each other. Do you remember that? The 2 seconds for Chase Brown.
Oh, yes. Mike, I love you, man. If you're listening to this, which you probably are, I love you. Oh, that's a bad one. That's
Mike
a bad
is
one.
crushing it in our league.
Yes.
Yeah, Mike is a risk taker, and he plants his flag.
We all have those. Yeah. I'm not going to talk about my Christian McCaffrey trade.
Only reason I bring it up is that personal beefs, and there are certain things that just stick with you long term. We do have a quick story during Below Deck about some beef I have with an owner who's going above and beyond to try to get under my skin, and they might be succeeding. So please stay tuned. I don't want to call it a hidden agenda. I'd rather call it a bonus goal. But one of the most important things for me in doing the show was to give a platform to commissioners everywhere. A lot of people who are commissioners never talk about being commissioners, and dang it, I want to talk about it because they do not get enough credit. Correction, we do not get enough credit. You do all this work to make a great league, and the easiest thing in the world is to try to troll or like impeach the commissioner. And frankly, it's not a paid position, nor really should it be. But recently, one of the owners in our league, he was the original guy that was going to sell his team to Mike because his team was 1, in the garbage, and 2, he was constantly flirting with, if not trying to break the rules because his team was so bad. I think he had nothing better to do. Last year, I actually had a co-owner. Now, this co-owner, he was there because he's a lifelong friend. He gets along with the main core group of friends that make up the Yacht Club. Well, he didn't know this, but the bad owner who almost sold to Mike, we'll just call him Dan Snyder. Dan Snyder convinces my co-owner to pull a prank on me and trade away Justin Fields for a single 25 first. Now, to my co-owner's credit, he was like, hey, I will literally kill you, and you need to like swear on the life of your children that you'll reverse this trade, and we're just doing this to mess with Walsh. He's like, yeah, of course, no problem. It'd be great. They pulled the prank on me. I called my co-owner. I was like, hey, this is not funny. This is not cool. Long story short, I fired my co-owner. They had undid
within seconds. Like literally, this was within seconds.
The moment they undid the trade, I fired my co-owner. Couldn't be trusted. My team is too precious to me, right? The reason I'm giving you this backstory is that I have worked really hard as a commissioner. Dylan can speak to this, to create rules, especially when ones aren't unwritten. When B Hunt came on the show as a guest, Dylan, you and him were in agreement that I am too soft on punishing people sometimes. And so this week, I had an opportunity. Someone broke a rule, albeit a technicality of a rule. And instead of overlooking it and seeing the heart of what was going on, I absolutely laid the hammer down.
Full on dictatorship.
Yeah. Well, it was in the rules. There's checks and balances.
No, you're not going to do this justice. Before you proceed, let me just lay out how dramatic you were.
I'll yield the floor.
You were this guy. I understand. Being a commissioner, I'm not the commissioner of the league. I commission one league, but it's not nearly as active, or it's not a dynasty league. Being a commissioner is tough. I've seen it on all commissioners in the leagues that I'm in. But the second that you got a sliver of hope to like redeem the fact that you're not this soft, me, Josh Walsh, I'm not soft. You were so petty. You went after this owner, and I'm going to let you explain what you did. But this man, Walsh came on. Go ahead. No, what are you going to say? You're about to interject.
No, I was simply going to say, like, he broke a rule. And normally I try to constantly de-escalate any drama.
It was the technicality of technicalities of a rule that was broken. But Josh came in, he literally was not having any of it. Not for a second.
So I told the story. These two guys, one was, first of all, he was my co-owner and he agreed to play a prank on me. So I kicked him out. We have bylaws on bylaws. We also, I've set up a great government, by the way. Like, we have our version of the Supreme Court. Like, there are 3 people who can overrule me in any decision I make. But I do have the discretion, if someone steps out of line, both on a written rule or an unwritten rule, to give them draft pick penalties at my discretion. Because this has gotten so big. We've got like 20 members in there now. The co-owner I had came back to the league as Dan Snyder's co-owner. And they were like, hey, Walsh, I got your girl. And I was like, oh, cool. I posted the, you've watched the show. I've never seen the show, but I know the plot, the Euphoria meme originally.
Oh, yeah.
Where it was literally this. It's like this Dan Snyder's like, I've never been happier. Like, who's the 2 girl? I've never seen the show, but I know, like, you've watched the show, right? You're a Euphoria fan?
It's the role that Sydney Sweeney plays.
Yeah. I forget her name. It's like Cassie.
I can't remember her name either. Yeah, Cassie, I think it is. Yeah.
And then Maddie's the other girl.
I do not recommend that show, by the way. We do not endorse that show.
No, I don't. I've never seen it, but I know the plot. Okay. So literally, he takes my co-owner. One of our rules is co-owners have to be interviewed before they're accepted into the league. Dan Snyder has gotten on my last nerve. He did not set up an interview. He just added him as a co-owner. I instantly tried to kick him out.
How did he even do that? Because he doesn't have he can't do that, can he?
No, he's not supposed to be able to add them without an interview. And so he did. I tried to kick out this co-owner, who is my ex, but unfortunately I couldn't kick him out. I could only kick out the main owner. And I felt like that would have literally destroyed the whole league. Yeah, people would have rioted like, what is going on? Walsh
I mean,
is
the
on a
league
power
already
trip.
went up in smoke as soon as you did what you did as a penalty.
All I did was take a 2026 third and fourth away from him. And I was like, hey, this is a draft pick penalty because you didn't follow the process.
Bro.
Now, I'm just saying, it's so the reason I want to have this conversation, one, because it's hilarious and it's stupid petty, but it's really hard as a commissioner to be a peacekeeper all the time, but then also have like enforce the rules and it be okay. I had an opportunity. From now on, this is a new Walsh. If you step out of line, I'm coming with the hammer.
Here's
I have the right to.
And here's why, because I also stepped into the chat and Josh and I are good friends, so we can take blows at one another. I went in and I said, Josh, that was so petty. That was the most petty thing that you could. And I knew you knew it, and I could tell that you were leaning into it. Of all the things that you could have brought punishment to, there were so many scandals with potential. What's the word I'm looking for?
No, collusion. This
collusion,
owner,
yes, thank you.
Said I only did that trade because I thought I was getting Disneyland tickets. And I'm like, you just admitted to collusion.
What did you do to that? He literally admitted it to your face. And what'd you do? You know what?
I brought it. Okay. I brought it to the Supreme Court of our league.
And then fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you shouldn't get fooled again. Fool me 3 times, then what? Yeah, fool me 4 times, then what? Fool me 5 times and I overreact and take picks from you. That's all I gotta say.
I don't think it was an overreaction. He broke a rule. Listen, all I'm saying is to the commissioners out there, you're darned if you do, you're darned if you don't, man. Like, it really does. If you punish someone, you're overstepping your bounds. I have a contract. People can overrule me. I've like, okay, here's the 3 people and a 2-to-1 vote who can undo any disciplinary decision I make. It doesn't matter. People want someone to hate in terms of an authority figure. We have, in terms of a black hat, Davis wears that really well. So I'm appreciative of his rise to infamy. But man, it is hard running a league, but I'm playing loose, and let all the Yacht Club listeners who are members know I'm absolutely like, don't give me the nuclear football, because if I have a chance to launch, I'm absolutely launching it on the rest of you. I don't have time anymore. I have a child. I don't have time to investigate things.
What was the verdict? Is the owner still in the league?
Yeah, the co-owner. I took
does the other owner still have his picks?
Yeah, no, he got them back because someone traded them back to him out of principle. I was like, hey, I can't control what happens to him afterward. So the point was the principle was enforced, Dylan. It was I'm powerless, man. I need help.
I need help.
Bro, it's a freaking zoo animal. Like, it's a circus in there, dude. I got no help. And the more I've built the league up, the more people know it means so much to me, and they'll hurt it if they can.
So in summary, I'll give you the cliff notes of what we just talked about, guys, just in case you fast forwarded. Josh tried to enforce something spitefully, and then was overreacting and was completely throwing a temper tantrum, and then the result of it was nothing changed. The co-owner's still there, and the other owner that was punished got his picks back without penalty.
It felt good. Correction. It felt good giving someone a parking ticket who was probably guilty of murder.
God, you're such a mall cop. You're such a mall cop. You're a mall cop. That's what you are.
Well, we've talked about every single rookie, and I've revealed way too much about my lack of control and my lack of leadership in the Yacht Club. So tune in next week where hopefully we still have a league. This has been the Dynasty Exchange. Thank you so much for listening.